with all the snow around. Hello! Happy Christmas! Welcome, Life Church Wilmslow, to the first Sunday in December, which means everyone can start celebrating Christmas, lights can go up, trees can go up, and you know what? You can even watch The Grinch, which we watched in November. But we've also watched, what's the other ones we've watched? We watched Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2. In fact, what other good Christmas videos are out there? Please let me know, because we are desperate to get into even more Christmas spirit. But I don't know about you, but in our house, we have a very, very cheeky little elf. He, last night, went into the ceiling, into the attic, and got all the toilet rolls and left them everywhere. So today, my day is all about tidying up after this cheeky little elf. But I don't know about you, but I'm finding more and more the Christmases that go on, I'm actually starting to lose the understanding of where Christmas has come from. And I've probably got a bit more wrapped up in presents, food, the elf and the children and the magic side of it all, and actually really forgotten about the real reason of Christmas, which is Jesus. And without Jesus being born, you then don't have Jesus sacrificing himself, which is Easter. And then without that, we really don't have a faith, actually. So we really need to get to know or go back to our roots again of where the Christian faith comes from, which is Jesus, which is the Christmas spirit, I suppose. And that's where Paul is going to talk to us about unlocking Christmas. And I know I'm ready to unlock it again and go back to my roots and find out what the real meaning of Christmas is all about, because I do feel like I've forgotten it or lost it and need to be reminded that Jesus is the gift, and it's not necessarily the gifts we give out to all the other people. But enough about me and enough about my beautiful singing. We've got Zoom coming up after this, coffee, Zoom, or tea, or perhaps toast, depending on what you'd like, as a coffee meetup. And that's just after the service. We've also got, like I say, Paul talking about Christmas Unlocked, which is the new season that he's going to be talking about throughout the whole of December. So looking forward to that one, Paul, very much. But like I said, my beautiful singing was incredible, probably BAFTA award winning. But I know someone that's even better than that, and that's Brightline. So over to you, because I think you're better than I am at singing.
Angels from the realms of glory, wing your flight o'er the earth. Ye who sang creation's story, now proclaim Messiah's birth. Come, worship Christ the King. Come and worship Christ the King. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
I love Christmas. I love Christmas. I get to hang out with my friends. I get to hang out with my family. Loads of joy, loads of cheer. Love it. But I do realize that it's not everybody's experience. Many times people during the Christmas season feel lonely, feel like they're by themselves. At Christmas, we celebrate the birth of Jesus. The moment in history where God steps out of heaven into humanity. God steps into our story and makes it his story. One of the names that Jesus has is Emmanuel, which literally means God with us. So if during this Christmas time you're feeling lonely, remember, God is with you. God wants to be in this relationship with you. God wants to be in this friendship with you. God wants to give you life with purpose, life with true meaning, life to the full. And he does that through Jesus. 30 years later, after Jesus' birth, Jesus dies on the cross so that we can be connected with God one more time. 3 days later, he comes back to life, proving that he is God, showing what true life really means and giving us an opportunity to be able to have true, meaningful lives. The only thing we need to do is put our faith and our trust in him. So if during this Christmas time you're feeling lonely, remember the reason for this season, Jesus. But the reality is, it's not just the reason for this season. He is the reason for all seasons. He is the reason for the whole year. 365, sometimes 66 days as well. Merry Christmas from Brightline.
Okay, so I'm here with Alan. Alan Beck is a gentleman that I work with on a project through school where I send some of the young people that I work with to the church that he works in, and those boys teach English, conversational English as a foreign language to the men that Alan is working with in his project. And we do that, well, without COVID, we do that weekly or even twice weekly if we can. So that's how I know Alan, but it's something that I've wanted to do is to introduce Alan to Life Church Wilmslow. And Alan, would you just explain to everybody who you are, where you are, and what you're doing?
Good. So I'm Alan, and I head up a Trafficked Men's project in a church in Manchester with this terrific link with Vivian, which I'm very grateful. And the Trafficked Men's project has been going for 5.5 years. This is the largest volunteer project with trafficked men. And I've said trafficked men because in the Northwest, it's trafficked men who are supported, looked after, and kept confidentially in safe houses. And the women, the trafficked women, which we have worked with at the beginning, they fortunately go to very safe places in the south. Now, numbers. The project has been going for 5.5 years. We've supported over 400 men, and they come from 23 countries. And one of those countries is actually the UK itself. So perhaps I should go straight into, having mentioned trafficking. What is trafficking? And trafficking is the perfect business because you steal another's economic capacity by violence. And violence is the thing. These men are discovered in various places around the UK, car washes, factories, furniture making, and then the police usually discover them, and then they've got to drive them away from places of danger, at least 2 hours driving, and that's what brings so many of them up to the Northwest.
Gosh, that sounds like a challenging thing for you to do. So what do you do with these men, Alan, once you have them safely in a house?
Well, I'm very grateful that there are charities who run these safe confidential houses, and we're just the volunteers doing the extras, but very important extras and continuity. Obviously when men arrive, and we could see them like almost the day that they arrive, they may have no other clothes. They may have been discovered in caravans or something like that. And immediately the professional help gives counseling, medical help, sorts out, usually they have no papers, sorts out all of that, but then they can arrive to us very quickly. And some of them will have no English whatsoever, or only a few words. And some of them may have had very little education. So our main jobs are, in spite of COVID as well, our main jobs are as volunteers, is English, so practical English. A lot of them will be asylum seekers, and after the 31st of December, nearly all of them will be asylum seekers. And for their asylum cases, they need to show that they are trying to get on with the English language. And also another key thing, which I'll come back to, which is trying to show some sort of community involvement and to try and get them settled in the Northwest as long as they're going to be here.
Mm. So could you give us a feeling for one man's story? Just give us a typical story.
Yes, and this is something I'm rather embarrassed about, is that I write and prepare all the materials for this English. And also, can I say, we've in normal times, we do Saturday activities, so walks, because some of them when they arrive are too frightened to go out, and so they need us to take them walking. Now, there was a guy who arrived from Romania, country of origin Romania, and he had some English. And I immediately got him involved in a little bit of a class topic that I had a couple of others working on. And it was about buying a mattress. So a simple script about buying a mattress, something very practical. And then afterwards, the first time I met him, and then afterwards, he explained to me that he cannot sleep on a mattress. For 12 years, he's been homeless. And he's never slept on a mattress for 12 years. And in fact, subsequently, when he was being looked after in the safe house, it took them weeks to get him from sleeping on the floor to sleeping actually on the bed.
Oh, gosh. So some really quite tragic stories that you're dealing with. So if we want to support you in the work that you're doing, could you outline to us your greatest needs? Because we have people in our church who will definitely want to pray, but they'll also want to help practically. So are there any ways that we can help you in terms of supporting in prayer, but also supporting practically?
Yes. Well, like us, you join us in prayer as well. So from my church, where I'm a church warden as well, we pray daily. The practical things are, fortunately, with the help of the school itself, who've been fantastic and really contributed, I've been able to buy computer tablets for each of the men. And I've been able to continue that and want to continue that with new arrivals, so that me and my wonderful volunteers can teach them online. And also to access, I've been putting a lot of materials up on Google Classrooms. So what's needed is the practical help that's needed is the following, that as things change, I hope, and we have less restrictions, that support, any volunteering support, because there are others who have been through that charity system, so to speak, and some of them have settled in a wider way in the Northwest, and they are very lonely because they've gone from 24/7 care when they arrived into NAS, what's called NAS accommodation, and they'll be in houses for asylum seekers, often with problems in those houses. And what I do and volunteers do is we ring them up. Unfortunately, we hope to see them when they can move around and we can move around more easily. So part of that is just support right across the Northwest. People are in surprising places across the Northwest. And the other thing is that Christians can help hide asylum seekers. But that is by giving care and volunteer support generally to asylum seekers, and they can hide the trafficked people within those asylum seekers, so they don't have that label. And part of the friendship and giving any support is PTSD, the terrible psychological effects of being trafficked. There's very high levels of, particularly of PTSD, of terrible shock memories back. So strong that this has happened to me again and again. I've just been standing outside the church or been on a walk with some traffic guys, and one of them will suddenly be terrified of a car driving towards us, simply because it is the same color and make of a car that he's been moved around in the boot of that car. And sometimes traffickers have said, we're going to drive you off now to execute you. So I'm back to friendship within boundaries and within training. And the other thing is with Christmas coming up, that what I talked to you about was Christmas gifts. And those gift bags, those gift bags or something like that. Some of these men are obviously from different traditions. Some of them are Vietnamese Buddhists, and some of them are Vietnamese Christians. Obviously, Romanians and Poles and others are Christians. But to be able to give thought and practical gifts within those bags as well, and cards and written cards, because those are individual messages, and in particular things that each individual man can put up in his room as something extra and a reminder of the prayer and support that we all want to give.
Thank you. So we talked, didn't we, about did you say you work specifically with 12 men?
No, much more than that. More than that. But what I was saying was, very practical, that there are 12 who really need these Christmas gifts. That's a really good aim.
So more would be great, but 12 would be just exactly.
It's a good Christian number.
Yes. So in the bags we could put, I think we talked about maybe something to eat, perhaps biscuits, not chocolate, you said.
I think not many sweet things.
Okay.
But you and I will talk more about the detail of that.
Yeah, we can communicate that to the church. And we did talk about things like warm scarves or gloves for the winter. And as you say, things for the room that might just make it personalised for these men. And toiletries too can also be helpful, can't they?
Yes, yeah. And something curious, like for the Vietnamese, who a lot of them have been locked up for long periods in these cannabis factories, just locked up by themselves. And then every fortnight, the traffickers come in with some frozen food. They've got nothing else but something to defrost and maybe not even a bed. So for those, they're smaller hats and smaller gloves, because sometimes I've brought them into, for example, a place like Primark to buy those smaller sizes.
Yes. So a man's small size would be right.
Yes, you and I can sort out the details of that.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So that's what we're really saying, is that people have heard a little bit about what you're doing. There are ways they can help. They can definitely pray. They can definitely volunteer, and maybe give a gift bag for one of these men.
And if I could mention one last thing, which is really ongoing, to support their asylum cases, what's needed is some sort of proof of evidence of community involvement, and in any way that if they can be, that any of them can be involved. And I work very hard at this in any sort of charity, from a food bank or anything like that, that goes into their record as showing that they're putting down some roots in this country and here in the Northwest.
Absolutely. So by saying that here, you've told quite a lot of people who are involved in our church, then there may well be people who can provide that for them. And if we can, we will, Alan, because what you're doing is so important and valuable, and well done. And thank you on behalf of us all, really, for this amazing work. And thank you for being interviewed today. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure that you'll get a really positive response, because the people of Life Church are incredibly generous. So Thanks, Alan.
Good. Thank you so much, everybody.
Oh, come, O ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. So come ye, oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. God of God, light of light, lo, he abhors not the virgin's womb. Very God, begotten, not created. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Sing, O ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Yea, Lord, we greet thee, born this happy morning. Jesus, to thee be glory give. Word of the Father, now in flesh appearing. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord.
Now, I know that many of us want and need Christmas with our families. We feel after this year we deserve it.
Up to 3 households will be able to mix indoors between the 23rd and the 27th of December. It follows government talks tonight.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. But you are right. It is important that we don't let things go too loose over Christmas.
Well, good morning and welcome to a series called Christmas Unlocked. The last month has been filled with speculation as to whether Christmas will be locked down this year. Some people even suggest being cancelled. I mean, politicians and scientists have been giving us daily updates while social media has been going just crazy. Everyone guessing, everyone with an opinion on Christmas. Will it be normal this Christmas? Will we be able to meet and eat and shop and party? Well, who knows? We still don't really know the answer with 4 weeks to go. But one thing we do know, you can't lock down Christmas. You can't lock down the peace and the joy and the hope that Christmas represents. And there's one verse in the Bible that proves that. It was written 700 years before that first Christmas day, and it foretold what would happen in that stable in Bethlehem in the Middle East 2,000 years ago. And for the next few weeks, we're going to be unlocking Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. And as we unlock this verse, I think we'll also unlock the potential that Christmas contains. So here we go. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 says this, just one verse. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Just want to give you some background to that one verse. 700 years before Christ, the nation of Israel was in total despair. Assyria, the superpower of the day, was bearing down from the north. Israel was already divided amongst itself and fighting Judah versus Israel, and both kingdoms were looking for allies in the battles. Anyone to help them, anyone to be on their side. Northern Israel itself was divided. The south didn't want to fight. 60 years later, King Sargon crushes northern Israel, and he was ruthless, a real psychopath. I mean, get this, if you read the Bible, it tells us that one day he put fish hooks in people's lips and dragged them across the desert and tortured them to death. That's what this guy did with his enemies. It's rated 18 if you want to read it, but it's there in the Bible. And in the middle of all of this, King Uzziah reigned, and he was a good king. He was a godly man, well, for most of his reign anyway. And they relied on him for direction and keeping the peace and for providing. And during those days, there was immense prosperity. But then it happened. King Uzziah fell. He disobeyed God and he died. And for many, that was the last straw. Most people during that season were asking, okay, what on earth do we do now? We thought it was all going well. We thought it was going good. And then King Uzziah died. And they were in despair, and life had become a constant daily battle under continual pressure and fear of destruction. It seemed like they were in darkness, some people said at the time. Because of their own sin and because of their own stupidity, really, it seemed like the God of Israel had left the building. That they couldn't seem to see God anymore. They couldn't seem to find him. And because of that, they were trying other things to fill the void that God had left. Desperately seeking other people, other relationships, anyone at all, anyone, anywhere to help. And that's why God sent Isaiah to help recover their relationship with God, to open their eyes. And he started his ministry just as things got real bad. Remember that we heard it the other day by Chris Bowater. Isaiah chapter 6 starts with these words, in the year King Uzziah died. And that's where Isaiah starts his ministry and his work. And note this, that the theme of Isaiah is found in Isaiah's own name. His name means salvation is from the Lord, meaning help is only from God, no one else. In the middle of all of this, God's greatest plan in history of the universe is revealed through Isaiah. And are you ready? Here's the answer. The people were in distress. They were down. They were facing torture by death. They didn't know what was around the corner. They didn't know what was going to happen next year. And here is the revelation that came through Isaiah. Are you ready? Unto us a child is born. I mean, yeah, you're probably thinking the same thing as the people thought in that day. What? We're facing a superpower of psychopathic murderers? Imagine coming up against that. What would you prefer? I'd prefer a bigger army, even a better machine gun, or even a tank. Give me anything. But no, in the middle of their darkest moment, in the middle of their deepest depression, God says, for unto you a child. But not any child, a child with a heritage and a birthright, a son, a God man, a supernatural child for them. But sadly, the people 700 years before Jesus, they just didn't get this. They just didn't understand it. It wasn't like a big, yeah, fantastic. They just didn't get it. And I wonder whether somebody watching this today reads those words and still today just doesn't get it. Maybe, friend, maybe this list describes your life. In despair, life has become a constant battle, under continual pressure and fear of destruction, even from COVID-19, even from the lockdown, either from the disease or from the effects of the disease that we're going to face next year. Unemployment, insecurity, our bank accounts going down instead of the other way, feeling like you're in darkness, like in a dead end. Seems like God has left the building. Well, if you're feeling like that today, and you're feeling like God has left the building and he's left this crazy world, and you're like those people trying other things to fill the void that God has left, well, I want to encourage you today. Here is the answer again. I'm going to read that line again. Unto you and to me, today, a child is born. The child is born for you. A son is given for you. And this is what he'll be like. And here's the great news I just want to share briefly this morning. Here's the great news. This is our only hope, friend. Thank God for, even this week, a vaccine. Thank God for the NHS. Thank God for the scientists in our nation. Thank God for all of that. But friend, that's not where my hope is today. For you and me, a child is born. For you, a son today is given. That's the good news. That's the hope of Christmas. At the end of the Second World War, there was a concentration camp. And each day the guards looked upon these guys and they saw the hopelessness in their eyes and just the futility of life. And one morning the guards noticed a difference. There was whistling, there was smiling, people were happy and talking to each other. Now, you need to know, nothing had changed their circumstances. Nothing. Everything was still the same. But the secret was this. That night, someone had smuggled a small transistor radio into the camp. And they heard the news, tuning into that radio, that the Allied forces had landed at Normandy. D-Day, Deliverance Day, had started. And it was now just a matter of time until they were freed. Their circumstances hadn't changed. Their situation was exactly the same. In fact, it would be almost a year until they were fully liberated. But listen, the help was on the way. They were not forgotten. For the first time, they realized there is hope. They were not alone. I've got some great news. 2,000 years ago, in the Middle East, in a small, insignificant town called Bethlehem, there was a landing. God himself came to earth. The Lord of the universe, of the galaxies, of the moon and the stars came to our rescue. It was D-Day. It was Deliverance Day. That's why we celebrate Christmas. That's why we put up a tree. That's why we give gifts and get excited at Christmas time. Now, maybe your Christmas this year might not be perfect. Maybe your New Year is not looking all that good. Maybe you're facing some massive challenges. But listen, Christmas is a reminder that help is on the way. We're not forgotten. We're not alone. Help is on the way. Why? Because for you and for me, a child is born. And his name will be called... Now, just pause there. This is really important. And you know, it's important if a child has been given for us, if this is a gift, what is the gift like? How does it help me in my situation? What will he be like? How will he help me? Well, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to unlock this verse and look at the 4 things that it means to know that a child is born for us. I'm just going to go over those briefly this morning. But in the next 4 weeks, we're going to be looking that he is our number 1 wonderful counselor when you simply don't know what to do. He is our wonderful counselor. Have you ever been in a situation where you simply can't work out which way to go? You can't figure out a way. You can't pay your way out. You can't find an answer. You can't find a map to lead you out of the situation that you're in. You just don't know what to do. And there seems to be no possible answer. Have you noticed it gets worse the longer that you can't find a solution? As day goes into day and you just need an answer. Listen, if that's you today, Jesus comes to you today as your very own personal counselor. Isn't that great news? Wonderful counselor. Secondly, mighty God. When you just can't fix the problem, he comes to you as your mighty God. In fact, those of you who know your Hebrew, that's what the Old Testament was written in. The word there is El Gibor. El Gibor. El that comes from El Shaddai or Elohim. You might know those two words, which means mighty. And Gibor meaning mighty one. So listen, the literal translation is he's the wonderful counselor and he's the mighty, mighty one. The mighty, mighty one. Why is there an emphasis on mighty, mighty? Well, don't forget what I just told you. Isaiah was speaking to people so much like you and me. They were believers, they sang the songs and read their Bibles, but as soon as they got into a bad place, a difficult place, they started playing God themselves. We can work it out. We can pay our way out of this. We can scheme and we can organize and we can plan to get ourselves out of this situation. And God was screaming at those people in Isaiah's day to ask them this question. Why are you playing God when you can have me, the real God? I'm here for you. I'm here for you, and I am mighty. I used to sing a song in Sunday school. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. It's only sometimes when we grow up do we forget that God is a mighty, mighty God. So he's our wonderful counselor. He's the mighty, mighty God. He can do anything, anytime, anywhere for you watching this live stream today. And then thirdly, everlasting Father. Everlasting Father. Oh, I love this part of the gift. When you feel all alone. You know, it's difficult enough when you get into a place of you don't know what to do and you just can't fix it, your problems. But it's even worse when you get into that situation and you feel like you're alone in it. And here's the weird thing with this description. It directly relates to where God's people were in 700 BC. The term father in Israel was often associated with the king. He was known as the father of the nation. And they were grieving. They were in loss and in pain because they'd lost their father. The king was supposed to provide for them and protect them. And now he'd been taken away. And you know, when you've been let down and you know, when you feel like there's no one there for you, he's not just a father. It's very descriptive that he's the everlasting Father. When other people leave you and forsake you and let you down, he's the one who'll stay in your corner. He'll stay there for you because he's not just the Father. He's not the Father who left you and abandoned you. He's the Father, the everlasting Father, who'll stick with you through thick and thin. And then the last one, Prince of Peace. Prince of Peace. You know, life doesn't always leave a lot of room for peace. Have you noticed that? Especially in 2020. Life can be, at times, a combination of pandemonium, of confusion, of bedlam, anarchy, and complete turmoil. I mean, look at our nation in the last 12 months. Look at the world in the last 12 months. But it says here that he is the Prince of Peace. And if you're lacking peace today, if you just need an injection of peace into your life, then he's the one for you. There's three kinds of peace that the Father wants to bring you today. Peace with God, peace with others, peace with people around you. Maybe you're looking at Christmas Day and thinking, oh no, we're going to be around the Christmas table and there's not a lot of peace in our family. God can bring peace right into the middle of your family situation and your relationships. Peace with God, peace with others, and finally, peace with yourself. And that's so important. Many people in our nation today are not at peace with themselves. The peace that helps you sleep at night, the peace that helps you rest and recover and be refreshed. Jesus Jesus is the gift at Christmas, and he is the Prince of Peace, and he gives the kind of peace that is, well, it's internal and it's unshakable. It's not dependent on present circumstances. It's not dependent on vaccine or no vaccine, on COVID or no COVID. You know, when Jesus arrived from planet Earth, when he arrived on that D-Day, the first thing he pronounced when he could speak, the first thing we hear him pronouncing is peace is here. Peace has arrived. So hey, join us in the run-up to Christmas this year. Unlock the power and reality of what Christmas can mean for you. Not just for this season, but for the whole of 2021, for the whole of the new year ahead. And listen, if you've never met the real Christ of Christmas, if you've never experienced his counsel when you're confused, his mighty hand to help you when you're in need, his presence when you're lonely, or his peace when you're in turmoil, then I just want to encourage you today. I want to encourage you to get in touch with us. Get in touch with Life Church on our website. No question is out of bounds. Ask us anything. Ask us about what I've been talking about today. I don't often say this, but get in touch with me personally. My email address is pb@paulbriers.com. pb@paulbriers.com. Get in touch. Ask the questions. In the meantime, enjoy this Christmas season and tune in next time as we unlock Christmas together.
Paul, what a great message, as always. I love your 3 points about peace, and actually I've had to come to terms with that so many times in every area of our lives, and that's what I really like about peace. It's not just you buy it and you finish and that's it, you can move on. You actually need peace constantly through all different walks of life, and actually different styles of peace in the day correlating to different things that are going on. So thank you, Paul. It's something I'm going to be taking away with me. But actually we named our daughter Neve, her middle name is Amity, which means peace between nations, and we really felt that, like, as people were growing, we can affect peace within other people, and I really pray for that over Neve at night, that she affects people's peace, because if you don't know God, you might not understand peace into its truest forms. So Paul, thank you so much for that, as always. Brilliant. But we're coming to an end now, and I just have to go through a few notes. Housekeeping. One is life groups this week. There's 3 life groups, so join, go to the website, find out about the 3 life groups, whichever sits well with you. Join. If you're new, please feel free to come. Everyone is welcome. You don't get a grilling, you can just come and turn in without your camera on or your mic. Just everyone is welcome, so feel free to join. And on that note, website's brilliant place to get to know people. Sign up to the MailChimp and you can get some information about what's going on at Life Church Wilmslow. And we really want to make a family and build a family, so please feel welcome, and we will always join you to our extended family here at Life Church Wilmslow. Yes, last but not least, we're going to have a coffee right now, or a mulled wine. Is it too early to have a mulled wine? Nah, coffee, mulled wine. The link's just on there at the post. All welcome. Like I say, new people, come and join, come and meet some new people. Have a brew and enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next week at Life Church Wilmslow.